The Center for Audit Quality presents Profession in Focus.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Profession in Focus. I'm Cindy Fernelli, the Executive Director of the Center for Audit Quality, and I'm very pleased to have with us as our guest today, Rick Hatfield. Rick wears two hats that are of interest to our viewers today. First, he's the incoming AAA Auditing Section President, but he's also the professor and Fayard Endowed Chair at the University of Alabama's Culverhouse College of Commerce. So Rick, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I appreciate you having me. I'm very excited about my new role as the president of the Auditing Section. The people of that section have been great to me. It's an honor to have a chance to give back a little bit.
Well, congratulations. And as you know, we at the CAQ value very much our working relationship with the AAA Auditing Section. So I'm looking forward to continuing that under your leadership. So let's talk a little bit about the AAA Auditing Section and the benefits that it brings to both academia and the profession.
Yeah, so for me, that's just it, right? It's getting the academics and the profession together, and it's a great format to do that in. It's a community of academics and professionals, and we all want to make our profession better. We do that through education, we do that through research, we do that through service. There's a lot of things that we're doing, and our section is great at it. We have a lot of programs. I can talk about some, but you're involved with some of them, right? So we have things like access to audit personnel, where the CAQ allows academics to get access to audit professionals and run our experiments and different surveys and different things that we do to try to learn more about it, try to make it better, and try to find the problems that we can help to solve.
Well, tell us about any initiatives or developments on the horizon that you hope to bring forward during your tenureship.
Well, so one of the things that happened just as I come in is we're kind of partnering with the PCAOB with a research initiative to try to make a call for papers combined with our primary journal, the Auditing Journal of Practice and Theory, combined with that journal to really find those topics that are of most interest to practice, that are most helpful to practice. And I think those are the most interesting things we as researchers can get involved in. And we may talk about that later, but that to me is a huge thing. We have several other areas that we're, I can't really say names yet, but I'm in discussions with some other folks to maybe get access to data like we do with the CAQ, like we do with the AICPA, and to an extent with the PCAOB as well. And so anything we can do to bring us together and share information with one another is an incredible thing. As a microcosm, I think of the recent CAQ symposium where we had a round table, we had academics, young to old, we had several professionals sitting there. We talked about topics that were of interest to practice. We talked about, I spoke about my research and how I thought it applied to some of the issues that we spoke of. We talked about how do we educate, at our universities, how do we teach these kids the things that you think they need to know? And on the other side, how can we help you as you try to teach your young and older staff alike, the things that you're trying to teach them? How do we best educate the people, and again, to improve the process?
Well, so now I'd like to turn a little bit, because you yourself are an award-winning researcher. In fact, last year you received the AAA's Wildman's Medal for Research, having the largest impact on practice over the previous 5 years. That's pretty incredible, because this is actually practical research that those who do day-to-day audits can use. So tell us a little bit about your research and what drives your interest in that type of research and the factors that are critical to producing such research.
As an author, as a reviewer, as an editor, now as president, I really try to bring practice and research together. I long for professionals to consume our research like they do in other fields, let's say medicine or something of that nature. So, recently I spoke at KPMG Project Alumni, and one of the things I talk about is, if you want to have an impact, and I spoke specifically about having a long-term career in research, right? Because the extrinsic rewards only last so long. What keeps me going now that I've been doing this about 20 years now, what keeps me going is this relationship I have with practice, this feeling that I'm helping our slice of the world to make it better and working with this. Just another quick example, a couple of weeks ago I'm on the phone with the firm and we're talking about my research, which I love to talk about, and we're talking about how to implement that into their training, how to take some of the stuff that we learned that we all thought was important for young staff auditors, how do we implement that into training and to help get over some of the kind of the social issues that arise during an audit.
Well, I think you've hit on really an important thing, and that's taking the theoretical and making it practical. And it does no good if it's just at the theoretical level. We really all need to figure out how to make it so that it can be used day to day.
Right.
I suspect that's going to get a little more challenging. You really can't talk about auditing and accounting these days without talking about new technology. And so what do you see the impacts of technology on research? And what is there going to be a sea change in research the way there probably is in the practice of auditing and accounting?
I think so. So as I speak with professionals, it's becoming very clear that the future audit is going to look very different 5 or 10 years from now than it does right now. And so I hope as academics we're there to help shape that, with our research. Again, touching on a point you just made, we're an applied science. I mean, I view myself as a scientist, but as an applied scientist, and so we are trying to improve the process of auditing. Right, that's my goal. And so, I've written this in review comments to authors. I get that there's some abstract theoretical stuff, but I need to see the trajectory to practice. Where is this going to land? How is this going to impact practice? And so that's a key issue that you just hit on. With regards to technology, this is something I've been, I feel like I've been doing my whole career. I started, my first publication really was one that dealt with the changing review process as we go from the world I worked in, which is where I sat my file folders down in the partner's chair and then we talked about it or whatever. But we had this kind of discussion to a world of electronic work papers where the review process kind of went back and forth electronically. Well, how did that change? Things like accountability and effort and pre-planning versus ex-post kind of fixing. How did these things change? And so that was early on. And more recently, again, I love to talk about my research, right? But more recently, from a social psychological point of view, how do young auditors deal with more knowledgeable and kind of scary clients? What they do is they tend to email them, right? They would much prefer to email them than they would to go talk with them. So what we found over a series of studies is, well, that's going on. In general, young staff think there's a wider range of topics with which to communicate the client electronically than do, say, partners. They would rather you go talk to the client about this issue, right? And then beyond that, we find that just the mechanical nature of that communication style reduces the back and forth. The study was designed to look at what the partner at the firm I was working with, what he wanted to see was what affects follow-up questions. That was so important to him. And so what we found in this study is that just kind of the mechanical nature of communication, I think it was like a 6 or 7-fold, like magnitude of 6 times more follow-up questions when we speak together than when we do electronically. And then that carried on into things like professional skepticism. If there were some verbal or visual signals that can occur electronically. So that's kind of my love in terms of this technical change, but there's other obvious things. The big data analytics is going to change the face of auditing, and so we need to be there. I think the primary concern I have for that right now is that academics, we don't understand what the firms are doing very well. We need to get a closer relationship and more knowledge on what's going on before we can kind of peek in and see how we can help.
And I think it's early stages, right?
Yes,
They're all in
yes.
development,
Right.
research and development phases, and makes it harder to share, I think.
Right,
So,
and hopefully we can get involved in that. And I think we are to some extent, but it's not my area, so I don't know as well, but I think that's an important thing.
There's a lot of opportunity, but the
Yes,
pace of
yes.
change is just
Oh,
incredible.
it's crazy, yeah.
So, well, I'm really looking forward to your leadership and working with you in the AAA
Thank you.
Auditing Section. So thank you for doing this
Oh, no
professional
problems.
focus video.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
And thanks to all of you for joining this Profession in Focus video. I'll see you next time.